Alright, for this YouTube video I decided I'd do something different. For the first time I'm going to be doing a game review. Since I've been playing a lot of Gradius lately, I decided I'd do a review of my favorite one, which is Gradius Collection for the PSP. This is a pretty well put together collection. If you like Gradius or just shoot 'em ups in general, this is definitely a really good game to have. It contains 5 games from the Gradius series, and although I haven't played too many Gradius games, I have to say these are some of the best that I've played so far. It contains Gradius, the original arcade game from 1985, Gradius 2, Go for No Yabu, whatever, from 88, Gradius 3, the arcade version, not the Super Nintendo version, Gradius 4 from 1999, and the PlayStation game Gradius Gaiden. Gradius Collection also has some pretty cool bonus features. They included a movie gallery with CG movies from some of the past collections and games, and music gallery, which allows you to listen to music from the past games. What's pretty cool is they also included music from the X6800 versions of Gradius 1 and 2. The soundtracks in those versions actually differ quite a bit from the original in terms of the instruments, so that was a pretty cool feature. So essentially you're getting 2 past Gradius collections as well as Gradius Gaiden. The only one of these 3 that was actually released in America was Gradius 3 and 4 for the PlayStation 2. The Gradius Deluxe Pack and Gradius Gaiden never actually made it to America. As a matter of fact, Gradius Gaiden's release on Gradius Collection is its first and, I believe, so far only official American release. Besides that, it's been Japan exclusive since its release in 1997. Gradius Deluxe Pack just has Gradius 1 and 2. Gradius Collection for the PSP is also the first official American release of Gradius 2 as well. What I'm going to do next is I'm just going to quickly and briefly review all 5 games on this collection individually, pointing out like their difficulty, differences, that kind of stuff. The original Gradius, released in 1985, is probably the easiest out of all 5 games on this collection. That doesn't mean it's challenging at some parts, but it definitely takes way less practice to beat than some of the other games. The levels aren't really as brutal. The bosses are fairly simple. Most of the bosses you fight will be the big core, shown in the picture. This is probably one of the, if not the single most well-recognized boss in all of Gradius games. He appears in just about every one. There's no selection of weapons. You get one weapon set that you're automatically dropped off with. It's a fairly good weapon set. It'll get you through the game. This is an excellent game for beginners of the Gradius series to start with, because really there are only a few parts of the game that you're going to screw up on. This is probably the easiest Gradius game to play through the entire game flawlessly on. It's like I said, very, very easy, but that doesn't mean doesn't have its challenging parts. Especially the last level is actually kind of challenging if you're dropped off there without power-ups. But once again, this is a great place for beginners of the Gradius series to start out. I strongly recommend that if you're new to Gradius, you play this one first. Gradius 2 was kind of a different story from Gradius 1. It's a bit more challenging. It's still a game that you can, with a little bit of practice, you can play through relatively easily, but it's a lot more challenging. Right from the beginning, you're going to have all kinds of crazy obstacles thrown at you. Like the very first stage is the Fire Dragon stage. As you can see in the picture above, towards the end of the game, you'll face the first Shadow Dancer in the history of the series. These big spider mechs, you can't kill them. You have to weave your way between their legs. There are a lot of really crazy parts. This also introduced the gun wall to the series. But it's still a game that can be beat with a decent amount of practice. It's just a bit harder than Gradius 1. It introduced the weapon select. It allowed you to choose from different weapon sets, as well as 2 different shields. You can choose between the standard shield that was in Gradius 1 and the force field. Each one has their advantages and disadvantages. I prefer the force field, but that's just a matter of how you play the game. It's pretty rough. There are a lot more bosses. This one has a lot of variety in bosses as opposed to just fighting the big core through most of the game. There are a lot of variations of the big core in this game. Lots of different bosses to fight. There are more stages in this one. It's overall a tougher game, but it's not absolutely merciless. It's the only stage that I think is just downright unfair is the final stage. That one, unless you've played through it a couple times, you'll die left and right in that stage, guaranteed. So not for beginners, but still. Now, Gradius 3 is the one game on this collection that is absolutely brutal right from the start. It's nothing like the really easy Super Nintendo version. I guess what they were trying for was to make this even more intense than Gradius 2, which wound up making it the Ghosts and Goblins of shooting games. That's really saying something, because there are some really hard shooters out there, but I would not recommend this to beginners. Even Gradius experts will have a hard time with this one. As you can see above, there's this weird centipede shadow dancer boss. There are more bosses. The last stage is absolutely ridiculous. I still haven't beaten this one. This is the first one in which I had to resort to the save feature, which is included in this. It's tough. That doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. As a matter of fact, it's probably my favorite on this collection. It's just really, really hard. Like I said, not recommended for beginners. Even on the easiest difficulty. You need to be really fast on this one, so play at your own risk. And I nearly forgot to mention that this also introduced an extended weapons edit that allowed you to construct your own weapon set from scratch, or just choose between a couple of different preset ones. This introduced a lot of new weapons to the series. Now, Gradius 4 starts off fairly evenly paced. It starts off almost at a Gradius 2 kind of difficulty level, but towards the later stages, especially at the high speed stage, stage 7, it starts getting absolutely nuts. It starts out pretty intermediate, but then gets almost as hard as Gradius 3 from what I've seen. I still haven't finished this one. This one's tough, but not quite as tough. It's tough in a different way than Gradius 3, as I really don't know how to clearly explain it, but again, not necessarily for beginners, but more for the intermediate players. This is kind of a step backward. It lacks the extended weapon edit of Gradius 3, and instead just has a bunch of weapon sets like Gradius 2 does. Only one of them is like really new. And lastly, there's Gradius Gaiden, which I think is a very, very nice game. I don't like it as much as some of the other ones, although it does have cool features, like the level design is really unique. It allows you to play as 4 different ships: Vic Viper, Lord British, Jade Knight, and Falchion Beta. Each one has their own unique weapon set, and you can arrange the order in which the power bar is. It adds different shields. It's very well put together. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's pretty close. I like this one a lot. It's intermediate difficulty, like Gradius 2 kind of difficulty, maybe just a little bit harder. It's one game with a little bit of practice. You should be able to beat it without a problem. It's pretty standard, but I like this one a lot. It's pretty cool. The lasers and the missiles have 2 different levels of power. So to get fully powered up, it requires you to get some more power-ups. But at least on the easy difficulty, there seem to be a lot more enemies that drop power-ups. So this one is very cool. Well, that's about all there is to be said about Gradius Collection. Like I mentioned earlier in the review, this is an awesome collection, whether you're a Gradius fan or just a shoot-'em-up fan in general. One day when I get my own laptop, which should be relatively soon, I'll start doing walkthroughs for some Gradius games, because I haven't been playing this series for long, but I'm already a huge fan of it. The gameplay is simple yet challenging. I would probably give this a good 10 out of 10. It's an excellent game. The bonus features are cool, but the games are the best part. These are some of the best shoot 'em ups I've ever played, and I have to say, I'd recommend it. This video was also kind of done for the Gradius wiki group that I joined, because I figured I might as well join since I'm such a big fan.